When it comes to trying to sound more natural in American English, there are two changes that can be helpful to make that they're not going to necessarily solve all the problems, but they may make the path much, much easier in our quest to achieve a much more natural sound in American English. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to your American English pronunciation review show, the Schwa Mill. My name is Geoff. It rhymes with breath. That's one of the 4 keys to a natural sound in American English, including placement, pitch, breath. Trying to weaken your consonant sounds and strengthen your vowel sounds. I got a question recently talking a little bit about placement and basically saying that a student was practicing trying to take the placement down 5 times and running into some difficulties. Let's try to listen to what that actually sounded like, and then we can kind of talk about what's happening and some potential solutions. So if you're running into the same issue, maybe you'll be able to avoid it. Give me a second and I will share my screen and sound. So that way you'll be able to hear what I hear. Okay, let's take a quick listen to this. So they're saying the word row and they're going down 5 times. And thanks again for everyone who's been sending audio in our pronunciation group on Telegram. That's free. That's specifically for this Schwa Mill show.
Row, 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 row.
Okay, so one of the things that's happening is ideally this exercise you want to sound something more like row, 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 row. Okay, so you can hear that that's 5 different levels, right? A lot of times that first level is using what's called a higher placement. We're projecting higher, projecting more like, let's imagine like I'm talking up here like row, but then we take a little lower, row, 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 row. And there's obviously more levels you could do. You go higher, you go lower, but these kind of demonstrate 5 levels of placement, 5 different placements. And a lot of us from our first language, what we're doing is we're using the higher ones. A lot of languages have a higher placement than the placement in American English. It's like a lot of languages are kind of like talking like here, which maybe for me is kind of like top of throat, back of mouth. But in American English, we're talking lower because we're doing things like engaging in diaphragm and things like that. Okay, so we're going to be trying to drop things down a little bit. The very first thing that we'll need to do, though, before we even think about placement, is to make sure we get enough breath through. Because if you're not able to engage your diaphragm and get enough air moving, it's going to be hard to achieve those lower placements. So first things first, I want you to put your hands on your stomach. Okay, and these are exercises we've done before. Let me try to adjust this so you can kind of see me. Okay, so I'm going to breathe in. See how my stomach just went out, and I'm going to breathe out. You can kind of see it, but my stomach went in. I'll do that again. So breathe out. Breathe in. My stomach expanded, and then I breathe out, and my stomach contracted. Because that's how we breathe. Most likely that happened for you too if you did that with me. An exercise you'll see me do a lot too is trying to gauge what our ribs are doing as well. So for instance, if you take your fists, put them, again, I know my microphone is kind of in the way, but if you put your fists on your ribs, so kind of like around this area, the center of your ribs right below your chest, and then if you breathe in, see how everything expanded? I didn't like actively like force my fists apart. It's just that when you breathe in, like a deep breath, your ribs are going to expand because your lungs, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of your lungs, but when your lungs are full of air, they're pretty big and they have to go somewhere. So when you breathe in, you expand and your ribs expand. So everything opens up. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing that too. Breathe in again. And notice that when I breathed out, everything contracted again. Okay, so everything started moving in. So a lot of things are happening when you breathe in, right? When you breathe in fully, your stomach gets larger, your diaphragm moves down, and then your rib cage opens up as your lungs get bigger. And then when you breathe out, your stomach contracts, gets smaller, and then your ribs also contract. Ribs also contract as well. Okay, so these are key movements to making sure we have enough breath and things like that moving through. What's up to Levi stopping by again? Good to see you. And Ganshim's hanging out with us as well. Good to see you both. Thanks for being here. So, first things first, we need to make sure we're kind of getting those movements because the lower placement is going to be tricky if you're not able to get enough breath through. And one of the things I'm noticing when I'm listening to this audio file again that was sent to us.
Row, 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 row.
Do you see how there's
Row, row.
much less breath coming through? It's like row, 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 row. So it's just really tight. There's not really a lot of air moving through. And if you don't have a lot of air moving through, it's going to be hard to achieve the lower placements. And it's going to be hard to achieve the resonance and the warmth. When we say do you hear like that kind of like low, bassy drone and things like that? Okay. Do you hear that sound? We're not getting that from that audio file that was sent in. It's just rope and then the breath is cut. So we're not really having enough breath. What's up also to Tom checking us out in the morning. Appreciate that, man. Thank you for being here. So we need to get more air coming through. Okay. So in addition to those little breath exercises at the beginning, just that can be used to gauge, are you actually engaging your diaphragm and moving breath? Some other things you can try doing. So again, let's just like breathe out. So breathe in, breathe out really quick. You just do. And when you're doing that breath, make sure your shoulders aren't like going up. When you breathe in, you don't need to do. You don't need to do that. You keep your shoulders down. It has nothing to do with your shoulders. Okay, so try to keep your shoulders down as you breathe in, but make sure again your ribs are expanding and your stomach's expanding as well. So again, and then breathe out, and try to get that contraction. Things. The next thing we'll need to do is let's try to vocalize a little bit. Let's get a vowel sound attached on the breathe out. So we can use like an ah sound. Okay. Can you do breathe in? And then ah. Now, key part of this, notice that the ah sound finished about halfway through, but that doesn't mean the exercise is done. The breath has to keep moving after the sound finishes. I'm not saying ah. I'm not doing that. Notice that my vowel's going to stop halfway through. Do you see how half of it was just breath? It's just the exhale. A lot of students have a hard time with this. Instead, what they do is they tend to just make the vowel really long or the sound really long, just like ah. But they run into the same problem. They're not changing anything. You're just making the longer vowel. But then when your vowel finishes, your breath stops. Like ah. That's not the exercise because you can hear the breath doesn't continue. The breath has to keep going even after the sound finishes. Ah. You can do it with other vowels. You do it with the E sound. E. So it's not E. That's not it. Like you're just making the vowel really long. Don't make a long vowel. Make a long breath. E. Your breath doesn't even have to. Your vowel doesn't even have to be that long. It's just like E. Ah. Oh. And things like that. Okay. So by doing that, it's going to add a lot of resonance and breath because you can hear when you're saying this exercise, you have no continuation of breath.
Row, 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 row.
Like row, row, row. After every row, the breath just dies. Row, row, row. Versus row, row, row. Okay. The last thing I'll say about this, if you're trying to get this placement lower, is it may be helpful to practice some exercises related to firmness and softness. Right now, all your sounds are really firm. What is firm? Firm is like this. I'm talking firm right now. This is a firm voice. This is soft. I'm talking with a soft voice right now. It's not quite a whisper, but it has a lot more air moving through. A lot of us are coming from languages that are very firm. Romance languages are pretty firm. A lot of your Asian languages are pretty firm. American English is constantly playing around with firmness and softness. We can do that a lot more, and it's going to help us achieve a more natural sound too. All of the ways you're saying row right now are pretty firm.
Row, 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 row.
Row, row, row. We're also really blocked off. There's really no air that can move through that. And that's going to make it very challenging to achieve the placement things we're talking about. So like it may be helpful to start with just like an O sound. Can you just like whisper an O sound 3 times? Just like oh, oh, oh. And it's a true whisper if you don't get any vibration in your throat. So it's just like oh, oh, oh. Can you do that? Oh, oh, oh. You can even try doing the placement exercise with just with whispering. It's like oh, 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 oh. Do you hear that the pitch was different and the placement was a little different on those, even though it's whispering? Oh, 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 oh. Okay. Then you can make it a little firmer. Oh, 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 oh. You make it a little firmer. Oh, 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 oh. Make it a little firmer. Oh, 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 oh. And a little firmer. Oh, 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 oh. And things like that. Okay, but those are the things I would be practicing if you're struggling with placement, you're having a hard time moving it down. Well, if you can't have enough air moving through it, this whole exercise is going to be very hard. So start off with just some breath exercises. Then after that, move into those placement scales. You can do steps. You can do dragging, like Let's again, we're finishing with breath. Okay. This can also get into some exercise I've done before, like lip rolls. Like, can you do like a be able to do that? That can be a sign that you can engage your diaphragm and your breath a lot. Because if you're doing, you're just so tight. You're just so everything's engaging too much. So we want to make sure we can actually roll the lips, like, and then you can do exercises. The next thing would be trying to move the placement for that. It's like starting high. Can you move it down? It's like, okay. You should be able to go in the opposite direction as well. Okay, can you do both of those directions? I'll be honest, for a lot of students, one of those directions is going to be challenging. It's either going to be the mid-high, it's like, or it's going to be the mid-low. You'll know it's hard if you try doing like, so as soon as you try going low, it stops. Or the opposite, like if that happens to you, that's a sign that you need to work on that placement in that range that you can't reach. I've been asking, is there any other exercise to achieve softness, American English, other than shadowing? I think doing those little exercises that I did a moment ago, practicing whispering. Just get used to talking, whispering, whisper some things, and then try to make it a little firmer, and then try to make it a little firmer, and then try to make it a little firmer, and understand what it feels like in that regard. All right. But thank you to everyone who's been sending us files. Again, if you would be interested in sending us files for review, on a future episode of the Schwa Mill. We have it on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, right around 7:30 a.m. New York. You can check out the video description. If you're trying to get feedback every single day for yourself, because in the Schwa Mill, we're only looking at 1 or 2 files, but you may want to get feedback every single day because maybe you're trying to prepare for a presentation, or you're trying to make sure you get your practice in every day, and you want some feedback from an actual teacher and not your friend, because your friend tells you, oh, you sound fine, or your friend says, oh, you sound weird, but I don't know why. We can tell you why. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can check out the full Telegram group right there at fluentamerican.com/Telegram. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's hard to do a review show without having things to review, so I appreciate all the people sending files. Appreciate you watching. There's a lot of pronunciation resources out there. I'm very much aware of that. So the fact you're here is appreciated. I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon, and